The first time my neighbor knocked on my door after midnight, she wasn't crying. She was too broken for tears. She stood barefoot on my porch, wrapped in an oversized gray hoodie despite the warm summer air. Her hands trembled around a paper coffee cup that had long gone cold. The porch light revealed dark circles beneath her eyes and the exhausted smile people wear when they've spent months pretending everything is okay. "I know this is a crazy thing to ask," she whispered, "but I think my husband is cheating on me, and I need someone who'll tell me the truth." I should have said no. I should have told her that marriages weren't my business, that hiring a private investigator would be smarter, that crossing into another family's problems always came with consequences. Instead, I opened the door and invited her inside. That single act of kindness would change both our lives in ways neither of us could have imagined. Her name was Emily. She and her husband, Daniel, had moved next door nearly 4 years earlier. They looked like the perfect suburban couple. Weekend barbecues. Holiday decorations that always went up before everyone else's. Matching bicycles. A golden retriever named Max who loved every person he met. From the outside, they were the kind of couple everyone secretly envied. But walls hide more than pictures. Over steaming mugs of coffee, Emily admitted the truth she had been carrying alone. Daniel had changed. Not overnight. Slowly. Late meetings became overnight business trips. Phone calls moved outside. Passwords suddenly appeared on every device. He smiled at text messages but barely looked at her anymore. "I keep telling myself I'm imagining it," she said quietly. "Then he comes home smelling like perfume that isn't mine." I listened without interrupting. Sometimes people don't need advice. They just need someone willing to hear them. "I don't even want revenge," she continued. "I just need to know if I'm losing my mind. I promised I'd keep my eyes open. Nothing more. At least, that's what I intended." Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed things I probably would have ignored before. Daniel leaving before sunrise on days he claimed he worked from home. Expensive shirts arriving in delivery boxes. A woman in a silver SUV waiting around the corner every Thursday afternoon. One evening, while mowing my lawn, I watched Daniel climb into that SUV before it drove away. I took a picture. Then another. When I showed Emily, she stared at the screen for almost a full minute. "I knew it," she whispered. But knowing wasn't enough. She needed certainty. Against my better judgment, I agreed to help gather proof. I told myself I was protecting a friend. I didn't realize I was becoming obsessed. Soon I found myself adjusting my schedule around Daniel's. I'd invent excuses to walk Max if Emily was working late. I'd sit in my truck outside coffee shops after spotting his car. Each clue felt like another piece of a puzzle. Each piece pulled me deeper. One rainy Friday afternoon, I followed him farther than I ever should have. The silver SUV parked outside a lakeside cabin nearly an hour from town. I watched Daniel step out carrying flowers. A woman rushed into his arms. They kissed. My stomach twisted. Without thinking, I raised my phone and captured everything. There it was. The undeniable truth Emily had been searching for. Yet instead of relief, I felt something darker. I had crossed a line. Driving home, I kept asking myself why I hadn't simply left after confirming my suspicions. Why had I stayed? Why had I photographed every embrace? Every smile? Every kiss? It no longer felt like helping. It felt invasive. Still, I handed Emily the photos that evening. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply nodded. "Thank you." Those 2 words weighed heavier than any accusation. The following week, Emily confronted Daniel. I expected shouting. Instead, silence filled the neighborhood. His truck disappeared. The porch light stayed off. Max stopped barking because nobody walked him anymore. I wondered if I'd done the right thing. Then, 3 nights later, someone knocked on my door again. It was Daniel. He looked nothing like the confident man I'd followed. His eyes were bloodshot. His beard had grown in uneven patches. "I know it was you," he said calmly. I braced for anger. Instead, he surprised me. "I'm not here to fight." He sat on my porch steps. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he admitted everything. The woman wasn't simply an affair. She was someone he'd dated briefly before meeting Emily. Months earlier she'd contacted him with devastating news. She had terminal cancer. No family. No children. Nobody left. "I was helping her," he said. "I paid medical bills. Took her to treatments. I lied because I knew Emily would think exactly what she thought." I stared at him. "But the kiss?" He closed his eyes. "She asked me for one last moment pretending life had turned out differently." I didn't know what to say. His explanation sounded impossible. Yet something about the pain in his voice felt genuine. The next morning I drove to the cabin. The silver SUV remained parked outside. An elderly hospice nurse answered my knock. She confirmed everything. The woman, Sarah, had only days left. She smiled when she heard Daniel's name. "He gave her dignity," the nurse said softly. "He was the only person who stayed." My heart sank. I had judged an entire story by the few pages I'd witnessed. The photographs I'd taken hadn't been lies. But they hadn't been the whole truth either. I rushed to Emily's house. She opened the door looking exhausted. Boxes already lined the hallway. "I know," she interrupted before I could speak. "Daniel told me everything yesterday." "You believe him?" Instead of answering, she handed me a folder. Medical records. Hospice documents. Receipts for thousands of dollars Daniel had secretly paid. Letters Sarah had written thanking him for giving her hope during the hardest year of her life. Every piece fit. Every doubt disappeared. Emily looked out the window. "He should have trusted me with the truth." I nodded. "And I should have trusted that there might be more to the story." She smiled sadly. "We both failed him." A week later, Sarah passed away peacefully. Daniel and Emily attended her small funeral together. Only 11 people came. I stood in the back, feeling like an outsider witnessing a lesson I desperately needed. After the service, Daniel walked over. "I don't blame you," he said. "You were trying to protect someone." His forgiveness hurt more than anger ever could. "I crossed the line," I admitted. "I forgot that evidence isn't always the same as truth." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "We all see life through tiny windows." Months passed. Emily and Daniel slowly rebuilt their marriage. Not because trust magically returned, but because honesty finally replaced secrecy. They started counseling. Spent weekends together again. Laughed more. Sometimes healing begins only after everything breaks apart. As for me, I changed too. I stopped assuming I knew people's stories simply because I witnessed a moment of them. When neighbors argued, I no longer guessed who was right. When strangers acted cold, I wondered what invisible burden they carried. Compassion became more important than certainty. One autumn evening, nearly a year later, Emily invited the entire neighborhood over for a backyard dinner. Children chased fireflies across the lawn. Music drifted through the cool air. Daniel grilled hamburgers while joking with everyone. Before dessert, Emily tapped her glass. "I want to thank someone." She looked at me. My stomach tightened. I once believed kindness meant finding proof. Now I know kindness means staying beside someone even when the answers aren't simple. She smiled. We all make mistakes trying to help. Everyone raised their glasses. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because I deserved praise. Because grace had found me anyway. After dinner, Daniel handed me a small framed photograph. It wasn't one of the pictures I'd taken. It showed Sarah sitting beside a lake, smiling beneath the golden evening sun. On the back she'd written a short note before she died. "Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist, even when life becomes unbearably hard." Daniel said, she wanted everyone who helped her to have a copy. I held the frame for a long time. The woman I'd mistakenly reduced to a scandal had become the person who taught me my greatest lesson. Helping others isn't just about uncovering facts. It's about protecting their dignity. It's about listening before judging. It's about remembering that every photograph, every rumor, every suspicious moment captures only a fraction of someone's life. The rest remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting for compassion to reveal it. I still think about that midnight knock on my door. If I could relive that night, I'd still invite Emily inside. I'd still make her coffee. I'd still promise she wouldn't face her fears alone. But instead of chasing evidence, I'd encourage conversation. Instead of assuming the worst, I'd leave room for truth to surprise us. Because sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't proving someone right. Sometimes it's helping people find understanding before they lose each other forever. And that lesson has stayed with me far longer than any photograph ever could.